Dinner and a Book is supported by the Rex and Alice A. Martin Foundation of Elkhart, celebrating the spirit of Alice Martin and her love of good food and good friends.
The history, politics, personalities, and production of bean-to-bar chocolate make for a compelling book by Rowan Jacobson, Wild Chocolate Across the Americas in Search of Cacao's Soul. I'm so excited to delve into the details of this nonfiction account and to talk about chocolate making with Hans Westerink, founder of Violet Sky Chocolate, truly a local treasure. Welcome, Hans.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to talk about this with you. So what is this book about, kind of big picture?
Well, what I really got out of it is, just people's adventures trying to find cacao in the wild, kind of uncovering hidden sources and new types of cacao and all the people's stories along the way, and how that kind of influenced the chocolate industry. It opened a lot of doors for people like me to make better chocolate and make
and for people like us to eat better chocolate. And I didn't even know about wild chocolate. So in honor of this show and your expertise, I'm going to be making a chocolate pot de creme, so a very rich kind of chocolate pudding that I'll explain in a moment. And then you're going to be showing us how it's made. It's so much better than the making of sausage, the making of chocolate. So will you talk to us a little bit about what you have out here, and then we can talk about how chocolate gets made and how it's connected to the book.
Yeah, so part of what I want to do with my business is with Violet Sky is to kind of unveil some of the secrets of what chocolate actually is. Because that's something I didn't know, and most people don't know. Where does it come from?
Yes.
What actually is it? So in essence, it's cocoa beans. That's what these are. So cocoa beans are the seed from a tropical fruit that grows in Central South America, right around the equator, basically. Okay. So that's what I start with, is raw cocoa beans. Then I roast them. And a big part of this book is learning about the different origins of chocolate and how that's significant, both for flavor, but also like culturally, how some places it's very deeply ingrained in the culture, like in Mexico and Guatemala. Other places it's just a cash crop. So it's really cool to learn about the culture and how people relate to cacao in those places where it's very revered.
Yeah, so much history, so much economics, so much culture. And what are these two machines here? One human powered and one not.
Yeah, so this is a molcajete. So it's essentially lava rock, stone. And this would be how people could make chocolate, in the past.
Okay. Have you made chocolate on that?
No, I haven't. No. Yeah.
Better living through electricity. Yes. Mm-hmm. So, and then what is
this? Is what I use to make chocolate. Okay. So it's called a melanger, or a chocolate grinder. This is a tabletop version. Obviously, I have bigger ones at my shop that I use.
Yeah. So cloud walking.
But it's similar to this. It's just made of stone. It's just an automatic version of it. So there's a stone base, stone wheels, and the whole thing spins around and just grinds and refines the texture of the chocolate, but also the flavor. That's really important for this, is it smooths out the flavor. There's, as the book mentions, there's basically vinegar in chocolate from the fermentation, and that is dissipating. The acetic acid dissipates.
Yeah, there's so much chemistry in here, and I think anybody who's ever enjoyed chocolate will just find a world opening up. So I'm going to just explain what's in here. So this is a like super basic custard, just with heavy cream, egg yolks, sugar, a little bit of salt, and vanilla. So you pour these into little tiny dishes. So you just have a little bit of this, and I'm going to add some chocolate here. And what I've got here, you said these are single source bars.
The single origin bars.
Single origin. Okay.
They're all just cocoa beans and sugar, but the origin of the bean is different, and therefore the flavor's different, the color's different, the texture can be different because they have different cocoa butter, natural cocoa butter contents that affect the texture and the way it melts.
Okay, and that's a lot of the book is this, so the book moves kind of chronologically over the last maybe 20 or 30 years. And for any of us who are, chocolate eaters of a certain age, we will remember these moments, or maybe a history where all chocolate was Hershey's chocolate, and the kind of in the 90s, sort of the introduction of Valrhona and some of these other dark bars that people had to learn how to taste, kind of. And as we were talking earlier, this reminder that even some of those, even some of the better chocolates, didn't necessarily have good politics. So there's also just the kind of reality of slave labor, of what's underneath the chocolate industry that we learn a lot about. But it also moves geographically through Belize, through Mexico, through Colombia, through Bolivia. So can you talk a little bit about the beans here and where they came from? It was so fun to hear how much of the book you already knew just from your own experience.
These ones are from Peru, and it's like a white cacao. You can see how much lighter it is than the other one. These are from Belize, and that's one of the chapters in the book is Maya Mountain. With Emily Stone and Uncommon Cacao. And that's my main importer is Uncommon Cacao for the past maybe 8 years or so. They have a lot of different origins, but the Belize, this was the first full sack of cacao that's about like 60 kilos.
Okay.
This was the first origin that I bought a full big bag of.
That is so great. How did she connect to you?
Just one of her coworkers called me randomly and was just asking if I was looking for sources. And I had some online sources, but this was a more direct source.
Okay.
And they told me about their transparent trade, which is like instead of fair trade model, and this is mentioned in the book, where fair trade has some, it's a good thing, but it's incomplete. They kind of overlook, environmental factors, and it's kind of just boiled down to how much the owner of the farm gets paid for the cacao, whereas transparent trade tries to be a more holistic. They try to share all their information, and just kind of a big part of it too is cutting out middlemen.
Right.
So there's not as many hands that the cacao passes through, which means the farmer gets paid more, and hopefully the workers as well are treated better.
So justice all the way down the chain, environmental justice and also justice for the workers is a real theme. And some of these heroes, when I was reading, I was so touched by Emily Stone, and then when we met to talk about the book and you said you knew her, I just felt like I was touched by fame. So, so do you want to show us how these are peeled, or what are these already toasted?
Yeah, so these are roasted. You could roast them in your oven. This is something you can do at home. You can make chocolate at home. All you need is this, really, because you can roast them in your oven. And if you do want to make chocolate at home, I highly suggest Chocolate Alchemy. Is a website where I learned, and they sell beans in small amounts, and they sell the equipment. So all you need to make chocolate is this. So this is a roasted cocoa bean, and I'm gonna remove the husk to show you the inside. So there's this thin husk on there.
Okay.
And then this is the bean. That's the good part.
Okay.
And that is what becomes the nibs once it's cracked.
Oh, it's very, wow. So you could crush it. If you did that for a year, you would have a bar of chocolate.
Yeah. The very first batch I ever made, we peeled by hand.
Oh, really?
And then the next step was you can use a hair dryer. So you crush them, and then you blow it with the hair dryer
oh my
to
gosh.
blow the husks
Okay.
away. Like toss them in a bowl, and Yeah, so my neighbors saw me outside hair drying a bowl of, like, what's this guy doing? So,
Okay, that's great.
yeah,
I'm just
so-
introducing a little bit of bubbles in here before I put them in the.
so then basically this is cacao, and all you need to make chocolate is cacao and sugar. You don't need to add any other fats. You don't need to add liquid to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, if you add liquid to it, it will ruin it. So this just needs to be ground now. So that's what these machines are for. When I run the melangers, they run for about 3 days, continuously grinding.
So, but you also talked about this as not all that dissimilar from making beer at home. So, and this machinery is not catastrophically expensive, right? If one wanted one of these, what does it run?
Yeah, maybe about $200.
So, think of if you make beer, how much money you have sunk into supplies.
Yeah.
So how wonderful would it be? So we're going to why don't you show us what it's like to put some things in the melanger, and these are going to get chilled for a little while.
Cool.
And then we'll top these with some.
It's going to make a little bit of
cream.
noise here
Yeah.
as we start to add these.
Okay, and those are the nibs that are
Yep,
going in.
Just going
that
to
have
add
been
them in
peeled.
there, and the stone will start doing its thing.
Oh, it's already getting a little quieter there.
Yeah, just that first minute, it's really loud.
Okay. And how much could you put in and have that?
Can make about 7 pounds with this guy. So
How many chocolate bars is that? Guess it depends on how big the chocolate bar is.
Yeah, like 30 or 40 bars.
Okay.
Yeah.
30 or 40.
Yeah.
Sounds perfect for me. So we're going to take a little break, and you'll see some images from Rowan Jacobson's Instagram, which has pictures from the book and pictures of him exploring wild chocolate. We will be right back. Hans and I have dueling bowls of tempering chocolate here, and we want to talk a little bit about how to taste chocolate. One of the themes in the book, as the chocolate industry begins to change, is you have to kind of teach the consumers how to value, how to taste the terroir of chocolate in the same way that we think of that for wine. So would you read a little bit from page 6 just on the little description of the complexity of chocolate as a food, and then we can talk about how mere mortals, like those of us who just like to eat it, can learn how to taste. Thank you.
Yeah, so from page 6 of the book, chocolate is one of our most complex foods with hundreds of flavor compounds. It's bitter, sweet, fruity, nutty, and savory all at once. It's also a virtual apothecary of feel-good compounds. It fills the mouth and the mind. Delicious, of course, but that's almost beside the point. The point is the gift.
The gift of chocolate. So I love that. Thank you. I'll put this over here.
And it is interesting how chocolate, I like when people ask what it tastes like, it's like it just tastes like chocolate, but that doesn't really begin to sum it up. Like, there's so many things, the acidity, the different varieties of cacao, they'll have different textures, different melting points, and that's something we were talking about, how it's really cool that chocolate is solid at room temperature but melts at body temperature, so it kind of magically transforms when you put it in your mouth, and just happens to be right in that range.
Yes, which we all kind of know, but it's wonderful to read that. And the part of the descriptions of chasing down wild cacao and trying these beans is these like amazing descriptions of it doesn't always taste good. Mm-hmm. Some of these varieties that they think might make good, bean to bar chocolates start out, there's one that they taste that just has the funk of mushrooms. So maybe a bad kind of complexity, but let's talk about the good kinds of complexities, and maybe let's talk about what's in the bowl here. And as strategy, lots of us have tried tempering chocolate at home, and there's some science behind it, right? So
yeah, so yeah, this is the Belize. So basically the same chocolate that we started in the Mellinger earlier.
Oh, good. Okay.
This is, if you can see how it looks now, it's nice and glossy. This is after refining for 3 days in the Mellinger.
3 days, wow, okay.
But this one, to me, it's very rich, dark chocolate, but it has lots of florals. So it has honey, notes of honey in it, and pineapple as well. It has a nice bright acidity to it.
And that is because of the bean and because of where it's grown, the soil and the whole environment.
The varietal and then the terroir. If you want to get really crazy, there's the microbial terroir.
Oh, sure. Let's get crazy.
Yeah, so that's like where something is grown. All cacao is fermented.
Right.
So just the microbes that live in that area affect how that fermentation
Of course,
happens.
totally makes sense. Just like wine, just like cheese, all of that goes into that, which is part of what's so disappointing about kind of big industry chocolate, right? That it's kind of low grade beans and everything kind of mixed together in these big piles.
Yeah, it's all amalgamated kind of, and then usually roasted darker to cover up defects. So if it's not as good, you can kind of roast away some of the defects. But with
you want to use the good stuff, which I'm using here. So this is some of your Belize Maya Mountain, so single source. Yes, and so I've just put a little bit of Chantilly cream on these, and I'm going to use this for a little bit of shaved topping here. I'll do some with sprinkles. I brought these over to a neighbor's birthday party, and they were very well received. So this is a fairly easy dessert that really highlights chocolate well, I think. So tell us about tempering without it seizing, which lots of us have had that sad experience.
Yeah, so when you're tempering, I mean, most chocolate you buy is already tempered, so you're just kind of trying to not lose that temper. So
and what does that mean, just for
not
those of us who
overheating it.
Okay.
So there's specific temperature ranges that different things happen chemically. So that's what a tempering machine does, is just hold chocolate in precise temperature ranges.
Okay.
Here we're using double boilers just to gently warm the chocolate.
You are. I think I blasted mine a little bit, but I'm still doing okay. I'm going to start dipping some things in here. But you've got a gauge here, and what is the optimal?
So the way I'm going to temper this is by using a small amount of already tempered chocolate, about 2%, and you just microplane it. So make sure it's nicely tempered. It should be shiny and have a solid snap to it is one way to tell if it's in temper. And then just microplaning it, 2% of the weight of your other chocolate, which should be at 92 degrees is my sweet spot.
92, okay.
Yep, and then you just mix in the microplaned chocolate and just make sure it fully melts and is fully incorporated.
Okay.
But as soon as that's mixed in and smooth again,
oh my gosh,
then
that looks gorgeous.
Then you're ready to, use it for whatever you're gonna use it for. For me, most of the time most of the time it's bars.
Yeah. So this, if you've ever wondered how a candy bar gets that shape, they don't use little chisels. It's a mold.
Yeah. Sometimes people have asked if it's stamped or whatever. So. Yeah, I'm just going to stir it for another minute or so.
Okay.
And then I'll pour it into the mold.
While you're doing that, I'm just dipping all manner of things in chocolate. so some potato chips that have a little body to them, some pretzels, and then I made some biscotti, which that would be a very nice gift, or a gift to yourself. And I bought some candied ginger, but I did have a really good time remembering it's pretty easy to candy oranges. So it's just equal parts sugar and water kind of melted down together. So I did 3 cups of sugar and 3 cups of water, thinly sliced citrus, and you simmer it for about 40, 50 minutes, pull them out and dry them for 48 hours or so, and you get something that's kind of the texture of nature's gummies, and super, super good. Be great to do fresh fruit as well, but that's not the season where we are. So are you going to pour? Oh, you've got this on the scale, so this is how every Violet Sky bar is exactly.
They have to weigh it.
Okay.
I mean, at home, you don't have to worry about that, but we're going to try to keep it to 70 grams. That's our natural sweet spot for these molds. It would just depend on the mold you have.
Wow, that just looks so fantastic.
Yeah, and you can tell even the way it's kind of ribboning that it's well tempered now.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the ribboning is one.
Just that it's kind of thickened up, starting to get.
Okay, so when we were talking about this book initially, you used a phrase that has just really stuck with me, and that is that this process is very inefficient,
Yeah.
kind of by design. And I wonder if you would talk just, oh, there it is, it's becoming chocolate, the chocolate bars.
Yeah, kind of got to get the bubbles out of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, magic on the set. So why do this kind of work? What is the pleasure for you and for those of us who are consumers?
Yeah.
Why might we really value this kind of small batch artisanal approach?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just kind of regaining a connection that's been lost. So we've kind of gotten further and further away from the things we eat, from our food, from just this disconnect. So this, to me, starts to build those connections back, for me personally, but then for my customers too, for people that experience it.
Right.
They can learn and actually know where it's coming from, know how it's affecting the communities who are growing it. There's a lot of environmental implications for farming in general that are kind of ignored, and if you don't have to think about it, then it's not a problem. But once you start to think about it more and be connected with what you're eating, then maybe you start to care, and maybe you start to want to make different choices or support, more progressive, more like, just
with our dollars. And the conclusion of this book is, there's some hard stuff in here, but the conclusion is, the more people invest in this, the more likely it is that some of these small businesses have the funding and support to reforest areas in Central America that then protects birds that are migrating. And, we know all of these things are connected. So while this solidifies a little bit, we're going to set the table, and we'll be right back after you get a chance to see some pictures of Violet Sky's and Hans's work. So we will be right back. Hans Westerink and I have an array of chocolate delights here. Wish we had smell-o-vision. It smells so fantastic. Inspired by Rowan Jacobson's book, Wild Chocolate. I've dipped all manner of things in chocolate, including some candied oranges, which you can try at home, and made some little chocolate pot de creme, nice way to have a small dessert with a really intense chocolate punch. And thank you for showing us how to make chocolate bean to bar. You can actually make it at home. Tell us about these beautiful bars here. This is one of my favorites.
Yeah, so we're just showing the finished product, one of the single origin dark chocolate bars. This is one of our more creative things. It's called cajeta. So that's like a caramel. But it's goat milk caramelized white chocolate. So good. And it's kind of verges on savory and sweet. It's kind of salty.
Yeah.
And just savory from the caramelization. So that's really always a hit.
Yes, it is.
It's addictive. Like you'll want to eat the whole thing. So yeah.
True. And you can see just beautifully packaged, a really exciting thing to unwrap, to give as a gift. Are there other flavors that you are really proud of that you like that Violet Sky does?
I mean, so many. The maple and vanilla is always super popular. I love our barrel-aged chocolate. So the cocoa beans sit in like whiskey barrels for a month or so. That's
Layers
really
of flavor.
popular. And
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, pine and citrus will be coming out. So that's like a fun winter bar with candied oranges, kind of like what you've done there. So
Yeah, there's
some of our favorites.
so many different kinds to try, so many to support. So what is your maybe takeaway from this book?
Yeah, just that chocolate isn't just chocolate. Like it's not so simple. There's
Right.
so much that goes into it that you would never know. And yeah, the book really explores just the culture and, all the farming and all the intricacies and
So much to learn,
Yeah.
so much to support as consumers. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been a blast. Thank you for joining us. We hope you continue to read widely and dip everything in chocolate adventurously. And we will see you next time on Dinner and a Book.
This WNIT local production has been made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Dinner and a Book is supported by the Rex and Alice A. Martin Foundation of Elkhart, celebrating the spirit of Alice Martin and her love of good food and good friends.